For those of you who don't know, I am a huge Final Fantasy VII fan, no surprise there. But it was definitely one of those anticipated games for me. Just like everyone else, I was super on the edge of my seat in terms of, well, how are they going to do it? What's going to make this, I guess, appealing to some fans? Because I'm sure many of you have been involved or saw debates online where people are like, oh, let's not remake certain games. Which, just as a quick sidestep, is a very interesting topic to talk about, because I see what their points are. New IPs, you tend to want that, but the cost of making games is now astronomical. It is honestly disgusting how much games cost on the AAA level. Honestly, it is baffling how we've let it get to this point. But the reason of should it not be made or just keep it as the original has always been interesting to me, because unlike films, there isn't someone rebranding it onto that of a VHS to DVD to Blu-ray and to then possibly now put it online streaming somewhere, right? On games, it's a lot more difficult to do that. Obviously you can get emulators, but do you want to do that? Like, how to get up and running, there's a bit of a barrier of entry on stuff like that. And it's one of those things where it's a shame, because we're going to miss a lot of our history sometimes by not having these games available. And I say that as someone who, I was born in the 90s, old probably to some of you who are listening, but young to others. And I know there's a lot that I missed from before my time, which is a real shame, and I'll probably never see or play again. So sometimes, yeah, that's just another side point, but a very interesting one. So yeah, that's another, like I said, another side topic. The issue, though, that's a really bad. Try again. Pushing that topic aside, though, the one thing that I really want to praise Final Fantasy VII Remake for is the understanding how games have changed since its first release in the, I think it was the late 90s, mid to late 90s, and how they've adapted that. Because there's been games that have come out, remade, and I'm going to talk about this one, which is, for example, Shadow of Colossus, the remake. To me, that was a bit of a letdown, and I'm not saying that to insult anyone who's made on it. I know they worked hard on it, and me saying that doesn't take away from anything that they have done. The reason I say that, though, is certain things like the controller layout, I mentioned that as well before, is that it takes up a lot of real estate on the controller, which is very close to everything, that makes it feel very uncomfortable. They never addressed that. There are certain things I felt that in the design method was very much for its time, right? When you had a big open game like that, I know it's like Silent Hill 2. It used fog because that was a technical limitation of the PlayStation at the time. They couldn't stream the open worlds. So when you see a remake, it feels slightly off in how they did it. I think it's the PC remake, which was years ago still. To the point where, because that's not a technical limitation anymore, it feels off, it feels weird to do that. But in Shadow of Colossus, well, there isn't a but, let me retake that. And we're comparing that to the Shadow of Colossus, the world is very dead, right? And it's kind of almost to the point where, again, it is showing you what little life there is. It runs in parallel with the theme, showing you the contrast of little life in the open world versus seeing these magnificent creatures, which, again, you're damaging them and their environment. Yet, there could have been more. I'm not saying put open world quests there, because I don't think that would have worked. There's definitely things that could have changed with the controls, with that of how you keep that theme. Maybe we have more creatures and animals related to that area. And when the player comes back after killing these Colossus, you see that the grass has died, for example. There's no more deer running around. Something like that, I think that could have been expanded upon. But again, I understand their constraints when remaking a game. It's a tough balance. Resident Evil 2, the remake, was the first to show how to do that. And Final Fantasy VII was another great one. in how they did this and how they showed that there's things that you can update, whether that be the story itself or expanding on characters like Jesse, Wedge, and Briggs, I believe it was. Them getting their own kind of involvement was super impressive. The open world having more kind of side quests and tests on the researcher. When you gave enough kind of data to him, you could then unlock VR battles and all of this playing into everything. And your kind of mark as Cloud and its impact on each section of these more hub world moments with the open world activities was great. And I think that they built in the systems and knew when it was time to change and what needed to be updated. Because here's the other thing, as we progress as designers, as an industry, all of this is changing, right? Everything that we're working on. And in one of my blogs and a previous episode, I mentioned about designing details, in which I talked about how Resident Evil used loading screens, same with Last Guardian, save points in Alien Isolation, title menus, how we as designers and developers just take them for granted. Well, oh yeah, that's just a loading screen. We can do so much more with that. And you're seeing that with other mechanics and moments that I've mentioned in this episode and the previous, and how they all come together to make something just better, so much better. And for those, I think it was Bluepoint who did Shadow of the Colossus, they're working on someone else's IP, right? And this is always going to be a constraint compared to Square Enix, who own the right and have some of the original team members still from Final Fantasy VII working there. So it's a slightly different environment that I get. But to me, it just shows you how games have evolved and how they were not afraid to evolve with them. And it was a really, overall very good game. I really enjoyed it. If you haven't, do check out the episode with me, Jonathan, and Blake, where we talk about Final Fantasy VII, give our full thoughts and review on that. It's a great one, talking from different opinions. Jonathan, who's currently working at Hangar 13 on the Mafia franchise, who actually recently did a remake on that of the Mafia franchise, and Blake, who's currently working on Horizon Zero Dawn, and myself, all looking at this from a perspective of old fans as well as, designers currently. So it's a great one, so do go check that one out.